I've been in the parenting business since 1989. I thought I had heard all of the terminology and knew the latest words and so on. But just a couple weeks ago, I heard a new word. At least it was new to me. Maybe you've been familiar with it longer. I was surprised to find out it's actually been around since 1990, when it was coined by a consultant in the areas of parenting and school discipline, Jim Fay, and by psychiatrist Foster W. Klein. The term is helicopter parents. Have you heard that? Any of you guilty of this? Well, we'll see. Helicopter parents are so named because they hover around their children. They are over-engaged, over-concerned, over-protective over their children, hence the name, helicopter parents. And it is primarily concerned with parents of adult children who haven't quite yet learned to let the apron strings go. And in fact, helicopter parents will try to find jobs for their children. They will try to coach them through interviews and write out resumes and do all of these things. And the trend has become so, I guess, widespread that human resource directors are trained specifically in how to deal with helicopter parents. You can imagine. And they tell that the effect is very off-putting for them because they're trying to hire an adult to do an adult job and they don't want to talk to mom or dad. They want to talk to the person. What's ironic about it is that helicopter parenting produces exactly the opposite of the kind of child that the parent wants to make. Because if we fight all our battles, if we take all our wounds, if we do all the work for our children, then they haven't had that experience, and they're ill prepared for when they do have to be out on their own and out of range of the helicopter and have to live life. Well, I mentioned this to you this morning on Mother's Day, not to make any accusations or to preach to any one person in particular. I'm preaching to all of us. But it is Mother's Day, and I wanted to set before you an example of a mother in the Bible who is the polar opposite of the helicopter parent. In fact, this mother threw her baby in a river. Yes. Let's turn to the book of Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible, chapter 2. And while you're turning there, I'll tell you that we're going to be looking today at the example of Jochebed. Sorry, I didn't do that quite right. Jochebed, the mother of Moses. And a fascinating story of how she dealt with a very deadly situation. Exodus chapter 2, verse 1, Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse it for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Now here's a mom on Mother's Day that threw her baby in the river. That's not something we generally encourage in parenting class. But there is a unique situation here, and what Jochebed did showed that she trusted God with her child. And that's something that all of us need to do. Now, we need to set the stage for this act to understand its significance and why she did it. So number one, if you're following along in your message notes, Pharaoh's evil ambitions threatened God's people. Pharaoh's actions were based on fear. Fear of the Hebrews. This new king, it says in chapter 1, did not know about Joseph. We'd have to go back to Genesis 39, 39, and read all the way through chapter 50 to know about Joseph. But this Pharaoh evidently didn't care about history, thought that was for geeks, and didn't bother to study. He was not grateful to the Hebrew people on behalf of what Joseph had done for them. Instead, he was frightened. He was frightened by their numbers. He was frightened that one day, if an enemy were at their borders, these Hebrews might join their enemies and take over Egypt. It felt a little bit like having an enemy army encamped within his own borders. So here's his logic. I think I'll make slaves of. To me, there's not much logic in enslaving the Hebrew people. If you do that kind of thing, generally you give people a strong motive to become your enemy, don't you? And these people had shown before this time no sign that they were going to rebel against Egypt. So it's an irrational fear that motivated Pharaoh to do what he did. He thought that if he kept them oppressed, if he kept them busy, if he kept them beat down, that they would not dare to stand against Egypt. But chapter 1 verse 12 tells us that this plan backfired, that the more he oppressed the Hebrews, the more they grew. The more that he enslaved them, the larger their community became. And the more the Hebrew nation grew, the more concerned Pharaoh became. It says that he used them ruthlessly. But his plan failed. When that didn't work, he tried something equally ruthless and equally brutal to reduce their male population. Now this at least has some evil logic behind it. I mean, if you take out all of the males, the next generation, there's going to start to be a population decrease, isn't it? And males are more likely to revolt or to fight a revolt. And the brutality of killing innocent babies would warn and depress the Hebrew people. These are all things that seem logical to dictators and tyrants, but history shows us have never worked. And are just wrong. What is illogical about the plan is that Pharaoh didn't want to get his own hands dirty, and so he went to the Hebrew midwives and asked them, imagine this, to kill the male children as they were born. Really? How do you suppose that worked? Well, chapter 1 tells us that the Hebrew midwives feared God more than they feared Pharaoh. And so they let the male children live. So plan B is in ashes, and when Pharaoh accuses the midwives of being disobedient, they say, well, you know, Pharaoh, these slaves, they're so strong and powerful that these women give birth before we get there. Really? Is that your story? Are you sticking with it? Yeah, that's our story. We're going to stick with it. So Pharaoh then has to go to plan C. Things are not working out for him. And his plan then was to toss the baby boys into the Nile River. Now this sounds equally dumb, doesn't it? He wants the midwives who wouldn't commit murder before to now take the babies and throw them in the river. Why do that? Well, in Egyptian commerce and culture, the Nile was the center of their civilization. They considered it a god. And so throwing these male children into the water would be, in a sense, making an offering to their god. And it would be a way of brutally showing these slaves who the true God or gods were. And that's what brings us to our situation in chapter 2. Moses' mom, we will see, chose a better way. She was faced with a difficult choice. She could either obey Pharaoh and throw her baby in the water, or she could disobey Pharaoh and try to keep him alive. But look carefully at chapter 2, verse 1. And it says that there was a man in the house of Levi, and he married a Levite woman, so this is of the priestly clan. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she did what? Hid him. How long? 3 months. Can you imagine being on the run? 3 months. Hiding your child for 3 months, having to stifle his cries, having to watch over your shoulder for Pharaoh's soldiers. And there may have come a time when Jochebed and her son were discovered. She couldn't hide him any longer, is what the text says. So now the choice is upon her. And one of the things I say to my Bible study classes time and again is if someone says to you it has to be either this or that, ask why not both? Look for another way, a third option. And so Jochebed here, in cleverness and under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, sees a third way, a middle path. She will obey Pharaoh and throw her son in the water. She will literally put her boy in the water. But Pharaoh's decree said nothing about boats. So she took the basket, and I would assume the very basket in which she'd been hiding. And she waterproofed it. She put in his favorite blanket and his little rattle. And put him in the basket. The top of the basket so the water wouldn't splash in on him. And set it in the river. Now I believe that Jochebed did that in faith. She didn't know what he would find or what would happen to him at the end of the river. The river was full of dangers. It was full of crocodiles and hippos and creatures that could swallow a baby in a basket in a single gulp. But this mom had seen a better way. She obeyed Pharaoh and she obeyed God in one fell swoop. Now let's see how God blessed her choice. What happened as Moses floated down the river? Well, first of all, Big Sister is there. She's watching. She's following the basket. Imagine this as it goes down the river. Trying not to be too conspicuous. Watching her little brother float down the river. And to her surprise and to her delight, he has this encounter with Pharaoh's daughter, who just happens to be out there at that moment. Do you really believe in coincidences? Or did God make it happen? This little watercraft came in the midst of the daughter of Pharaoh and her servants. And as the text tells us, she took up the little watercraft, looked inside coming down a rise, and here's Miriam on the bank. Oh boy. Here's my opportunity. I can save my blood. So she went up nonchalantly to Pharaoh's daughter and said, "Ma'am, I've got an idea. Shall I go among the Hebrew ladies and find one who can nurse the child for you?" Oh, what a great idea. I wish I'd thought. Sure, go ahead. Now, who's she going to go get? Jochebed. Moses' own mother is brought to Pharaoh's daughter to receive back her son alive. She received him back into her home, and Pharaoh paid the bill. Whoa, that's divine justice in action, folks. Here this man who had done so many evil things, who had wanted to do things that were even more evil, was thwarted in all of his plans, made to look foolish in all of the things that he thought he was going to do, and God played one more trick on him. Jochebed's faith in God was rewarded by receiving her son back into her home alive. Now it's true that she gave him up later, but nonetheless, she saved his life by her courageous action. And friends, I want to suggest to you that this is yet another instance in the Bible where God displays his power by turning evil into good, by turning triumph into triumph. And now you know why Moses' mother put him in that basket. To be faithful to God and man, she entrusted God with something that was more precious to her than life itself. And God delivered. A couple of years ago, a lady named Karen Friend wrote an article entitled, "You Might Be a Helicopter Parent If." I don't know if this person's related to Jeff Foxworthy or not. Let's take a look at it. You might be a helicopter parent if, when your husband asks where you want to meet for happy hour, he knows you mean at a playground. You might be a helicopter parent if, at 18 months, your kid can't say her own name yet, but she can clearly enunciate helicopter. You might be a helicopter parent if the daycare sends you a check. You might be a helicopter parent if, when asked, your 20-month-old indicates that squirrels, monkeys, and mommies are found hiding behind trees. If all of your clothes bear some sign of crayon, chalk, or finger paint. If you are filling out college applications for the class of 2030, more funny the other way. If your hugs have been recalled by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, or if there are 2 channels on your television and even those 2 are blocked 23.5 hours a day, you might be a helicopter parent. Family is so important to us, isn't it? And in this political season, and family can often become a football and used for political ends. The classic thing is to kiss babies and shake hands and not to get them mixed up. You're slowly warming up to it. And I was thinking this week as we were coming toward Mother's Day, why is that? Why do we, in all cultures around the world, prize family so much? Why have we, in American culture, set aside Mother's Day and Father's Day and Grandparents' Day? Why haven't we set aside Oldest Sibling Day as a special holiday? Why are we doing all of these things? Why is family so important to all of us? And what the Lord said to me in a part of the reason, is that we all want to love and to be. We all want a people in a place where we can be accepted and be accepted. And whether that group is a posse or a gang or a support group or a political party or a church or a family, we seek a place where we can just be. To share together the experiences of life, to love and nurture one another, without the helicoptering, without any kind of negativity. And I want to encourage you today to say, let's be like Yocheved. Let's trust God. Let's let go of the things that we think are essential and important to us that we can't live without. Let Him have it and see what you get. Amen. Our hymn of parting is the thing that we desire, I think, in all of these circumstances, in our families, in our church, in our community, that at the end of the day, we can draw a breath and say, it is well with my soul. Please stand, please, and let's conclude our worship service with this hymn of praise.